Match the following statistical terms with their appropriate definitions. Okay, so the shape of the distribution is letter C, which is symmetric or bell-shaped. It might be right skewed, it might be left skewed, all of those different options on letter C. Okay, so just talking about what does the distribution of the data, what does the shape look like? Okay, the next one is the center of the distribution. So now we're just talking about the center line, which is the letter A, which is your average or your mean, median, or mode, depending on what it is. Okay, so it's different numbers that we use to represent the middle of the data. The last one is the spread of the distribution, which is represented by standard deviation and variance. And we'll talk about those terms later on. 2, define standard deviation. Okay, so the standard deviation is a measure of the spread of the data. Okay, so if the standard deviation is small, that means the data is close together. If the standard deviation is large, that means the data is spread out. Okay, or the results are spread out. So maybe a good example would be students' test scores in a class. Okay, so let's say the mean was 70. They got 70% was the average score on the test. And the standard deviation was very small. The standard deviation was maybe 3 percentage points. Okay, so that means that within a that most of the students scored right around 70, maybe 3 above or 6 above, or 3 below or 6 below. Okay, so that small standard deviation means they were all close together. A large standard deviation, such as maybe 15 percentage points, means yes, the mean was 70, but there were some students that got way higher than 70, and there were some students that got significantly lower than 70. Okay, that's your standard deviation. Question 4, define sample variance. Okay, so the sample variance is another measure of the spread of the data. It's an estimate of the true population, and it's related to the standard deviation in that it's the standard deviation squared. Okay. Most often we use when reporting, and especially for this semester, we'll be reporting the standard deviation and not the variance. But so that you know, the standard deviation squared equals the variance. Question 5, provide a definition and or a brief description of the following terms. Okay, percentiles. So a percentile is a number such that a specified percentage of the data are at or below this number. Okay, so I'll give you an example. In high school, during the, I think it was my junior year, we did the ADVAB test, which was a military quality test, something like that. And on the report that they gave you back to send how well you did on the test, they gave you a percentile for all of them. So for example, in my math, I remember I was in the 96th percentile, which meant that I had scored, that 96% of all the students that had taken it that year scored the same as me or lower. Okay, so that felt really good. I'd scored 96 or a 96%. I had done better than about 96% of all the other people that had taken it. However, on that same test, I had gotten into literally the 5th percentile in the mechanics section. Okay, so that means only 5% of the whole student population of America, only 5% knew less than I did, meaning 95% knew more than I did. Okay, so that percentile is the specific number that shows how many people scored at or below your level. The quartile is our 3 special or unique or percentiles. They're the 25th percentile, the 50th, and the 75th, which leads into the 5-number summary. Okay, so the 5-number summary is, these are all percentiles again. It starts with the minimum or the lowest score, and then the 25th percentile, the 50th percentile, 75th, and then the maximum at the top. Okay, so it divides your group into four sections. Okay, so you have your 5 minimum, max, 3 quartiles, which divides it into 4 sections. Now we can represent this graphically using a box plot. Okay, so a box plot is shown by your minimum down at the bottom, and then a box, okay? And this box represents your three quartiles. So quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and then you have your max. Graphical representation of the 5-number summary. So question 6 says, the following data set are data on stock performance of specific companies. Find the mean, standard deviation, and sample size for each of the companies A through E. Click on the link to access this data set. Okay, so I've got the data set open here, the mystery investment opportunities set, and we're going to take and find the mean, standard deviation, and sample size for each of these companies. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste the data for each one into the Excel sheet entitled Quantitative Descriptive Statistics. And then make sure you're under the histogram and descriptive stats. And we can come over here and we can paste the values. Okay. Now these produce our numerical summary right here. So we have a mean of 21, standard deviation of 37, and our sample size is given right here. Okay, so there are 41 is our sample size. Okay, now also just to keep in mind, for question number 7, the following question, your histogram is given right here. So we're going to do that for each of them. So we can come back here, copy, and paste. Well, first off, it's a good idea to clear the contents of that one, and then if you do that, you have to copy it again. But go ahead and copy, paste the values in there. Okay, and then here again, we have our question 7 answer right there, and we have our mean, standard deviation, and sample size given right here. Okay, so you can do that and go through all of the companies in that way. Question 7, again, here is just the histograms that are given in the same way that in the same page that you used to answer question 6. Question 8, compare the histograms and descriptive statistics between the 5 companies describing differences and similarities between the groups. Okay, so this time we're not looking for a specific answer. There's nothing specific that we're looking for, but you may want to compare. Just make a few notes about the distribution or the spread of the data, as well as the means. So, for example, we could say that definitely in company C, our spread is very large, and in company E, we have a very small spread, and so forth. You could say that company E has the lowest mean, and company C has the highest mean. So just give us a few summary statistics there. Question 9, if you were saving for retirement, which of these 5 companies would be the most attractive investment to you? Okay, so this will vary depending on how risky you want to be. You may want to choose company B because it has maybe the highest average, but maybe you're a safer investor and you would like to choose company D because they have the most consistent or most predictable. Create a table to compute the standard deviation by hand using the data severe bird flu available on the wiki page. Okay, so if you go to the wiki and you look at that chart there, that's what you're going to use. You're going to make a chart like that in order to fill out the answers. Okay, so the first step is to type in the 7 observances, or the X's, in this case the 39.1, 39.5, 38.9, and so forth. Okay, and then you add those up and divide by the number that there are. That's the mean. Remember, your mean is the same thing as an average. And then you take each of the observances and you find the difference between the mean. Okay, so we're going to take this 39.1 minus 39.329. And then you're going to take the 39.5 and minus the 39.329, which is our average. Okay, that should give you your second column. And then you add the second column together, and that should give you a sum of 0. So your second column should have a sum of 0. Your third column should have, then in order to get your third column, you square each of the deviation from the mean. So you square the negative 229, you square the 171, you square the 429, you square the 129, and then you add all those up. Now the sum of the third column should be 0.854. With that sum, you can divide by the sample size, which is 7, minus 1. So divide by 6. So 0.854 divided by 6 is 0.142, which is your variance. And then remember, your standard deviation is just the variance squared. And so if you, or excuse me, is the square root. And so if you take the square root of the variance, you get 0.377, which is the answer. Okay, question 6. All right, we're going to look at the means here for the following data on companies A through E. Okay, so we first need to analyze the descriptive statistics, is what we're looking for, and explore. Okay, so I can slide company A over, hit OK. And there we get the statistics, the mean statistic right there in that box. Okay, and you can go back through and you can highlight it for each of the different companies. Question 7 asks, make a histogram of the stock performance. So in order to make the graph, we can come up here to Graphs, Legacy Dialog, and a histogram is the type of graph that we're looking for. So we can slide company A over and hit OK. You can see below here we get the histogram of company A. You can go back and do that for all of the companies as well. And the rest is the same as the Lesson 3 for Excel, or the Part A in